no idea. But I can track some pictures about glasses. Like, okay, so these glasses are in this shape, this shape, this shape. Okay, so that's the last one.
I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Remind you to, if you have one of these, to silence yours or anything that goes bing or ding. Going to welcome all the love and gratitude in the room. And so I want to welcome you. I think it's great to be able to get together and share some stories beforehand and have some good eats as well. So if I'm squinting at you, it's only not because the sun's, I got sunshine on my shoulders here, I guess. So, but thanks for being here, for sharing in this tribute retrospective of a most hardworking, big-hearted, witty, caring man, William Daniel Eller, known by most as Dan or Danny by a few close friends and family. I'm Ben Martin. I'm a life cycle celebrant. I'm grateful to Ariana Irvin, the funeral director, and Tyler, our service director today, and the staff here at Olinger, all that they've done to bring this ceremony together. I love the story table and all the elements that have come together to really iconically telegraph the essence of Dan. I know the family is grateful for your attendance and all the expressions of love and support. I'm honored to be here with you today and to have a chance to get to know Dan by way of the very special remembrance time with his sister Kathy. And from my interview time, I caught a glimpse of how much he will be missed, how beloved he was and is by his bevy of friends, by those casual acquaintances he would greet along the way, by his family and all the furry beings in his life. And while we're understandably reeling from a sense that Dan's life was cut short by an untimely passing, Rabindranath Tagore, an Indian poet, offers us this insight. And he said, the butterfly counts not months, but moments, and has time enough. Well, if we measure our life in moments instead of years, if we measure it in the amount of laughter and the number of acts of kindness and the number of magical music numbers, we realize how rich in moments we are and how rich a life Dan leaves behind for us to celebrate. Well, may we find comfort knowing that he is free, no longer struggling or suffering. As you know, his road was not an easy one, with a lifetime dealing with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disease, and then he had a series of complicating conditions that just kind of compounded over the years. May we find comfort knowing that it is love that survives this life, that it is love that will travel with us when we leave this world, and that it is love that will keep us united and connected as our loved ones carry our love with them through the rest of their days. Well, there were no strangers in Dan's life, only friends that he hadn't met yet. Whether you were an old-time friend or rather recent friend, with Dan you were a friend for life. Dan had an engaging charisma about him, knowing how to make you feel welcome, how to start up a conversation from scratch, how to inject a little fun to every conversation. I like the Jim Henson's quote, "There's not a word yet for old friends who've just met." Dan had a lot of dear old friends, some whom he just met. This ceremony is an important rite of letting go as well as an important rite of energetically connecting with Dan's essence that will remain forever interwoven in our hearts. And there's a transformative power and comfort in our collective remembrance and celebration, and it's my belief that we can reach Dan by way of our love, and that our love and our gratitude can be a source of nourishment for his spirit, something of a fuel for the soul. So I encourage each of you throughout this ceremony to beam a little love, a little gratitude, a little fond laughter his way. Well, Dan is survived by his sister Sharon, and his sister Kathy and her husband Ray, his brother Cliff and his wife Vicky, his nephews Ted and John, and niece Vivian. He was preceded in death by his parents, Louise and Ted. I invite you to take a deep breath with me and give the gift of being present in this service as we celebrate Dan's life. So maybe if you're willing, I'm going to count to 3. Everyone breathe in and hold Dan's image in your mind. And then as we release, then send out love and gratitude. So on 3, 1, 2, 3, breathe. Hold. Release, love, gratitude. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Hold. Release, love, gratitude. Thank you. Let us make sacred the grief we feel for our personal loss and for the loss to our community. But today, at the same time, let us look for the fondest of Dan times and celebrate this most remarkable, talented, kind-hearted, and the special moments that he has gifted us with. When a loved one leaves us, it's as if the door opens and we kind of feel this draft of their leaving, their essence so much in our present, their absence so much in our present, and yet their presence so much everywhere in our memory. So what a generous, humor-laden, music-filled life Dan leaves behind for us to celebrate. What great nourishment our memories of him bring to our own lives. May our love for him be his constant companion, as his love for us will be in the days ahead. May we this day reawaken laughter and love as we remember him. Let our love for him here and now continue with him now and forever. So let us in this service honor, recognize what has been, what is, and what will always be Dan, his love of the outdoors, his love of animals, his love of music. And thus we observe seed to root, to plant, to flower, to seed, earth to bloom, to earth. Soul returns. What he takes is what he leaves, unmistakable, like the scent of cinnamon and cloves or pine and rich earth, where it has been and will be. An unmistakable essence we knew as Dan, an unmistakable essence we instantly still know, an unmistakable essence we hope to re-know, recognize again, still more, in time now, reawakened by our memories, in time always, through the legacy he leaves us, in time beyond time, when we shall meet again. Well, in the words of Carl Sagan, the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. I love that. If you've watched the James Webb telescope snapshots of the universe and the incredible pictures of the imploding stars and the birthing nursery of stars, what incredible stuff to be made up of. So we are all stars, and Dan seemed to shine with a unique light all his own. So while we are saying goodbye to the orderly and concentrated remnants of stars that comprise Dan, his light is not gone, but can be thought of as refracted through us, multiplied 1,000 times over by the lessons we have learned, by the moments he's given us. We are better for having known him. Well, I want to call on an ancient and universal tradition of lighting a light in honor of the one who's recently passed. And I have here a candle. This is actually a candle that was kept in vigil in his place to honor one who recently passed. And then I have a few pine cones surrounding the candles. Pine cones are a symbol of legacy. They are a warehouse of seeds carrying the future trees with them. So in honor of his legacy, and certainly the sprigs of evergreen, symbolic of that which is eternal and everlasting. And if you were to ask me, well, what's that love? And then, and I have 4 tea lights that are floating in water. You're not able to see that, but maybe you can come up. There's some rose petals here, and that'll be part of our light. So I'm going to light this center light. May this light nourish us with a reminder of Dan's light, how caring he was to those around him, how fun it was to be with him, how kind he was to all dogs and cats, great and small. Bless us with his humor, his kindnesses, his light. Now extend his light to him. Bless him with our love and nourish his spirit with our gratitude. So these 4 tea lights represent the 4 aspects of the Hawaiian prayer called the Ho'oponopono prayer. I don't know if you know it, but distilled down into its clearest message, it has 4 guiding statements that are thought to release a person who are recently passed. And those statements are, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And that's, I think, just a whole gamut of the human connection. And so I'm going to light these candles. I invite you to bring him into his mind's eye and silently say these 4 statements with me, or those that most apply for you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Well, let's take a moment to focus in on our best memories and the light and delight that is brought into the room when we think of Dan. And as we listen to him play an instrumental song on his guitar, he was quite the guitarist. So here's a little bit of Dan coming our way, bringing in his own vibe. Well, Dan can make that guitar sing. That's amazing. Well, I wanted to take a few minutes to home in on the essence of Dan and some of his standout qualities before opening up to anyone that might want to share a memory or tribute. If there is a standout quality of Dan besides his warm smile, his witty sense of humor, and his big heart, I think it would have to be his charisma. Dan had a way of making you feel heard, and he showed genuine interest in you and your well-being. It's what drew people to him. His charisma was what enabled him to earn the trust of his customers as he matched them up with just the right sound product and helped architect a solution that would exceed their expectations. He's often recognized as the top salesman for Listen Up. I think some of his awards are over on the table as he represented the professional side of the sound equipment business. And he was known for always going the extra mile for his clients, no matter who he was working for. As his obituary says, he was a consummate salesman and always credited his success in sales to our daddy Ted, who taught him to listen and understand his customers above all. Back to that listen. Interesting that he ended up with Listen Up, and he was all about listening, tuning in. He sold professional audio equipment, then consumer electronics, and finally was a sales trainer for the Sony Corporation. He mentored younger sales staff and was repeatedly recognized by his company, his peers, his trainees, who will never forget his compassion, dedication to his colleagues and clients. Well, Dan had a great passion for the outdoors in general, and the mountains in particular. While born and raised in Texas, when he got a chance to come out to Colorado, he, like John Muir, heard the mountains call and never left. No doubt he would agree with John Muir when he said, "The clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness." Muir said of the Sierra High Country that it was filled with warm God and was a divine manuscript as revelatory as the Bible. Well, I think Dan found his cathedral in the forest, found his divine manuscript as he ventured out through the elk meadows and forest around Rabbit Ears Pass in Walden, Colorado. Seems the mountains are one of those places that fed his soul, nourished his imagination, delighted him. He loved to go hunting with his buddies, and he was quite good as he never failed to return home filling the freezer. I often like to ask family in my interview session that if their loved one did have a spirit animal, what would it be? Well, Kathy didn't hesitate. She volunteered an elk. Dan had such admiration and reverence for these beautiful creatures. His hunting mantra, but really his life mantra, was be the elk. The elk spirit animal symbolizes stamina, strength, survival, dignity, and integrity. These are all qualities you would associate with Dan. Certainly Dan proved those qualities time and time again as he bravely carved a life for himself, as he courageously endured various illnesses, as well as a congenital condition that created pain and ultimately disability. Elk's teeth were worn as a symbol to show a man's hunting skills. At least that's the way it was with the Native Americans. And we know that Dan was quite a skilled hunter. And while Dan was slight of stature, he had one of the deepest voices around. If you just heard him without seeing him, you would imagine a John Wayne or a Clint Eastwood. On many levels, he found a way to be the elk. And while you could take the man out of Texas, you couldn't ever really take Texas out of the man, no matter how much you wanted to. Dan loved the barbecue brisket, especially from the Michelin-mentioned restaurant of AJ's on Santa Fe. As his obituary says, he was a Texan through and through by nature and attitude. He loved music, guns, hunting, and animals, though not necessarily in that order. He was a forever, I'm sorry to say, Dallas Cowboy fan. And he shared that passion with his mom, Louise. And his taste in music always tended to Texas blues, especially the ZZ Top Band. I think you might have seen some of their pictures in the slideshow. Dan always had a special affinity for and looked up to Billy Gibbons, the guitarist and the primary vocalist of ZZ Top. Dan himself was a talented guitarist, as already demonstrated, and his obituary says he found success in both performing and in sound engineering. He supported many well-known musical performers with his backing guitar, his well-tuned ear, and his ability to make them sound the best they could in live performances. He was in several bands and shared his love of music with his fellow musicians and with young people just learning to play. He was a generous teacher, patient and kind, and those less experienced could always see the potential in the kids who loved music as much as he did and just wanted to learn. Well, I think everybody probably already saw this quote on the card from Tom Petty, who said, and this just resonates and reeks of Dan, when it says, music is probably the only real magic I've encountered in my life. There's not some trick involved with it. It's pure, it's real, it moves, it heals, it communicates, and does all these incredible things. It seemed to be so true for Dan that probably the only real magic Dan had encountered was music, the magic of his guitar and the gift to coax incredible music out of it, as he's already demonstrated. Well, the poet Anatole France once said, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." Well, if you count all the dogs and cats that Dan loved on and trained, you can confidently say that his soul was fully awakened. He knew how to love on them, coax them out of their shell, offer them the care they needed. Don't you know that if there is any truth to the Rainbow Bridge that claims that there's a reunion of pets with their beloved owners, that Dan is literally in heaven, reunited with so many of his canine and feline friends. He treasured his pets over the years, his cats, Cowboy, Buckwheat, who just looked like a big hairball to me, Spanky, and his dogs, Isaac, Gibson, especially the late and just so cute Griswold, and finally his little Chiweenie Louie, who immediately recognized Dan and ran to him and never left his side from the day Dan spotted him. Dan held on to Griswold's ashes, and as always said, he wanted them to be mixed in with his own ashes, and so it will be. When I asked what was or would have been a perfect day for him, I heard waking up in the morning at elk camp with his buddies. His hunting crew was well equipped with a huge canvas tent where the food was kept and cooked. They'd go out on their hunts, and rarely, if ever, did they come back empty-handed. And in thinking about his legacy, Kathy offered that his legacy was found in how to nurture others, how to offer kindness, how to offer love to everyone, and not just your good friends, but he seemed to be able to do that to just random people that he'd meet on the street and befriend them and then see them over and over. Well, there's no better way to wrap up this section of his story than with the closing paragraph of his obituary, and I want to read that to you. Everyone who knew him was charmed by his sense of humor, his generosity, and kindness. He touched so many and is sorely missed by all who knew him. He would say to us, "Do not be sad. because he is finally free, not struggling or in pain, and that he will be with us as long as we need him. Dan was a loving brother, brother-in-law, and uncle, and a truly good friend. He will be missed and mourned, but never forgotten. May he rest in peace, surrounded by his 2- and 4-legged loved ones who've gone before. Texas blues and barbecued brisket, rock and roll, sweet brother and friend, we love you. Nice. We want to move into a time of kind of collective remembrances and hear from anybody that would like to share with us. But I happen to know 2 that might have already come ready to speak. And the first one is his brother-in-law, Ray.
Thanks for everybody coming. It's great to see everybody. Dan was my brother-in-law for the past 17 years. We had many common interests: hunting, more hunting than fishing, music, animals, and a love of family. Back in 2004, after I met Kathy, Dan said, "Come on hunting with me," and started including me in his annual hunting trips to Walden. It was a big production. We'd haul the trailer up, take a whole day to set this stuff up, satellite dish, so we don't miss any cowboy games and stuff, right? So everything, like whole day to set it up, whole day to break down, right? And he was always prepared, no matter how big or small the hunting party. Guys would show up, and they would sleep on the floor in a camper. We'd step on them. We'd try to go to the bathroom, like early at night or whatever. They'd be on the floor, stacking them up. Everybody had a warm place to stay. We hunted as a group. Okay, so if anybody shot an animal, everybody would help get that animal out. Nobody was left alone, right? So it was like a big team effort. We'd all chip in, help clean the animal, dress and transport it to Walden for processing. Every morning during the hunt, Danny had to have his coffee. It was set to go off at like 5 a.m. And then eggs and bacon would start going. Always a big breakfast, and then like ham and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the field, right? Now when you sometimes smell fresh coffee and hear the bacon and stuff, I think of those hunting trips, He was an outdoors guy, if you knew him, and he loved being in the mountains. When he was in the mountains, that was it. He was like always having fun, right? He knew how to hunt big game, and he taught me a lot about that Walden Unit 17, where the animals migrated, where they hung out. And so after the second or third hunting trip, we were like getting animals over almost every hunting trip going up there. One time when I was helping clean a cow elk on the side of the hill, there was snow on the ground and everything, Dan fell inside the elk, okay? And he was sitting in there, like inside the elk. And I said, okay, so I'm laughing so hard I could barely reach down and grab him and lift him out of there. And he was all red on the side of his pants and everything. So we got dealt with that animal, and then we got back in the truck. I put plastic bags on the seat on my truck so he didn't get like blood all over my seat, right? So he sat there, and we went back to camp, and he had that big red mark for the rest of on us, my pair of pants. It was pretty funny. And we laughed so hard that I think we scared all the animals out of that side of the hill. There was like no more hunting for a few days over there. We both loved guitars and live music, and went to ZZ Top together. And of course it had to be ZZ Top. And then we shared a lot of music together, like YouTube videos that we found of like live. If I went to a concert, record it, I would show them the videos, or something we found like he liked AC/DC a lot, right? So like good rock and music he would listen to and just say, oh yeah, that guy's the greatest guitar player, And then when he started working at Sony, let's see, and then Dan lived with us, I guess, for the past 6 years. Like he came into the house, and then we built out the back end of the garage into a tiny home where he hung out, and that was his place. And then while he was working at Sony, in the high-end shop, he would come in and say, help me get this TV out of the car. And I said, where'd you get that? And he goes, I won it, like sales award, right? With a sound system, so we'd haul that into the house, right? And he said, oh, okay, you know, so he'd always like be bringing stuff home that he won, right? You know, we were in a small home together for a while until he moved out in the back. So there was some tension at first, but we got to work all that out. And then, let's see here. Every morning when I'd go out in the backyard, I'd be on my poop patrol because we had like Griswold out there at first and Casey and stuff. So Griswold would come out and greet me and everything, and then Danny would come out and stuff like that. So that was like a big routine, kind of like doing a meet and greet in the morning. He would have his cup of coffee and MSN cranking on the TV, you know, or he's playing music, right? And his voice was so deep and distinctive that I could hear him. I could be like over by the back door of the house, and I could hear him talking on the telephone all the way out in the back because he was like so loud. So I used to say to him that he should go and become a broadcaster or a podcaster because he would like, you know, do a really good job at that. And I knew Dan was having a good day when he was cranking his guitar out back, playing like Clapton or ZZ Top or something, and singing along. He would just crank that amp up, and you could just hear it in the neighborhood, hear him playing his music. And then I got a video that I showed up there, but you don't hear the sound, that when we used to go shooting before elk camp out in this range in Walden, he was shooting my 45-70, and he was like describing the whole thing, what a great gun this was. And that really deep voice, and like earlier said, that you think he would be like a John Wayne kind of guy, talking like, and here he is, he's like, what, like 5'8" or something, right? So, you know, he said, where's the big guy around here? You know, or 5'7", but you know, you think he was a big guy. That video I posted has like 14,000 views, and it kind of goes up because if you search on Marlin 45-70, you stumble onto that video, and everybody kind of seems like they dig seeing him shoot that gun, right? And he was definitely a character, and you know, and his joyful character will be missed because anytime we're out doing something fun, he was always having a good time. You know, he wasn't a throw a wet blanket on thing kind of guy. You know, it was always like making it more fun than what it was. Even if he had to haul animals out in the snow late at night in the dark, we were always like laughing about something, right? So it was never a job. It was always something fun to do. And that's it.
Great memories. Great thing to do too, to bring him in and offer him your space and create a place for him. I think that's remarkable and admirable. Maybe a chance to hear from Rick and Lisa. All right. I'm seeing a Rick. I don't see a Lisa. Oh, okay. Oh, I got you.
So it's just Rick.
Well, you can speak for her as well.
Most of you don't know me. My name is Rick DeWitt. My wife Lisa and I moved next to Louise in 2000 in Littleton, and that's how I met Dan. From the first time I met him, he was a very helpful guy. And the main thing I want to say about Dan is he was a good person. He helped anybody. He'd help me to try to play guitar, but I just couldn't do it. I used to rib him. We went to see ZZ Top at the Paramount, and they ended up paying $275 for a meet and greet, which was basically a picture. And after the show, we were having dinner next door, and he was kind enough to get an album of mine signed by the band. And we walked out of the restaurant, there was Billy Gibbons, and I got a picture with him for free. So I always give him a hard time about that. But he did love ZZ Top, he did love music, he did love animals. When they first got Grizz, he brought him over, and our dog Bandit and Grizz got along real well. I hope all three of them are back together. And his mom Louise, who was a real good neighbor, a short time she was alive while we lived there. I got stories, but most of them I can't tell. I would have gone hunting with him, but I never did. I regret that. The last 4 or 5 years or so, once he moved in with Ray and we moved 150 miles away, we kind of lost contact. We stayed in touch with him at Christmas time, which was around his birthday, and see how he was doing. So it was quite a sad to hear when he passed. But I know that he did have a lot of illnesses, and he's probably feeling better now. He's going to be missed. I give him a hard time about the Cowboys too, but I'm a Browns fan, so what can I say? He was always helpful, and we're going to miss him tremendously. I hope you all do too. Thank you.
Well, I almost liked you, Rick, until I heard that. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I wasn't going to. I just was going to make a joke. My joke is that I almost liked Rick until I heard he was a Browns fan. So Bill, come ahead, please. And it's still open for anybody else, too, so we're not closing off until we're done.
Well, I wanted to start out by saying, Danny, when we first moved up here to Colorado, we rode motorcycles up there. Had a really good time. I remember putting it's just a lot of motorcycle riding. We had a lot of fun. But Danny was a real good person. He was very inquisitive about everything that he did and always made sure that everybody else was informed about everything else that was going on. We did a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, shot a lot of elk, did a lot of good things together. But one thing I really appreciate about Danny is learning how to play the guitar. It's something I always wanted to do. And last time we played, he said, Bill, play the song like it's written, not like you like how to play it. And I said, well, okay, that's something like Danny would say. But one thing I'm really in my heart, that was a good guy, gonna miss him. I can't believe this happened, but man, I'm gonna learn how to play the guitar and remember Danny and all of y'all. Appreciate all y'all friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. How about somebody else share a memory, tribute, story we shouldn't know about? We should circle back, Ray. We want to hear some of those.
There's only iced tea.
That's true. That's a good point. There you go. Okay. Everybody meet at the bar after for those second round of stories. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Ray, Rick, and Bill. Appreciate you. W.R. Enge said that love remembered and consecrated by grief belongs to the eternal world. It's proved itself stronger than death. And I think we've experienced something stronger than death that connects us. Let us consecrate these cherished memories, knowing these gifts of memories are like seeds, and from them can come a Dan harvest. May we be continually blessed by their blessing, remembering, recollecting, recollecting, reawakening the life Dan so magnificently exemplified. Well, if we are tuned to the truth of the law of thermodynamics, that no energy is lost, then it follows that a person can't just simply leave us, but that their energy is somehow transformed, that is, moved into another locale other than the human one of filling up a handsome stardust container and animating it with sparkling eyes with some glasses around and an appreciative eye-rolling chuckle. But where do they go? One cliche we know to be true: they live on in our hearts. Yet physicists would have us understand that their energy is really still with us, and perhaps the transformation that occurs in our death is a dispersal of their essence that can inhabit places in the hearts, the beings, and the very souls of those who love them, and continue on in other dimensions, who knows. And perhaps there's a theory of entanglement that won the Nobel Prize a year ago. 3 physicists proved Einstein's spooky theory that when two entities interact, that they can become energetically connected in such a way that if you were to put them on opposite ends of the universe, you move this one, it instantly responds, which defies the law of the speed of light. And so the only explanation that was proven is that we're energetically connected, and that this entanglement might account for some of the pulsing that we might feel. I offer that perhaps the word love is just our everyday word for something understood by science to be entanglement. And when we continue to pulse in an energetic synchrony with each other, even beyond when death do us part. And as we are experiencing, death is a great mystery. And when it occurs, leaves us no choice but for us to find a way through our grief to say goodbye. And life is a great mystery, and we are given just a short time to find a way to live our best life. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all is love, how it can inform us, change us, transform us, how it is immutable and forever. Perhaps there was and continues to be an unseen energy that entangles us, love, and perhaps breathes us, keeps us connected, no matter how far apart or how transformed our energy might be. Love's great mystery can span both the mystery of our life and the mystery of our death. I bring you a poem of mine. It's called Remembering Our Remembrance of You. In this, our collective goodbye, there's an alchemy of remembrance, a remixing of memories distilled down to what was most your essence. We have called out where we have loved you, where we have hunted with you, where we have laughed with you, where we've had fun with you, and we have mixed it with the fire of our tears that now burn with loss, with regret, with the breathtaking, literally, mystery of death. And from this alchemy of remembrance, we experience a renewed intimacy with each other, with those who have left us long ago, and of course with you, who was here one day and then gone, but not gone the next, as you are still here among us. And in your death, the reaffirmation that love is forever, bridging where we have been with where we are arriving. O heart of our souls, may we learn to live as Dan lived, always there to help, to explore life with a great curiosity, with the intensity to live life to the fullest, greeting each day with a smile, a great sense of humor. May we sing this day while there is still breath. May we dance this day while there is still joy. Dan, blessings and much love on your departure. Blessings and much love on your arrival. One writer said, we live in life when we love life. Though we wish we had a few more years with him, clearly Dan lived life, loved life. And possibly because he loved life passionately and deeply, we feel so connected to him. You can count yourself lucky for having known him, for having him in your life for as long as you did. I want to take a moment to focus in on your best memories and send out your love and gratitude to Dan as we listen to Eric Clapton sing Tears in Heaven.
Would it be
Dan was generous with his I love yous all through his life, but rarely, if ever, did he end a conversation with goodbye. Just didn't say goodbye. His lifelong friend and confidant was a high school friend named Susan. They talked to each other, I think, every day. She got concerned when the night before he passed, he actually ended the conversation with goodbye, I love you, and said it 3 times. In retrospect, she surmises that he knew he was on the wane, and perhaps somewhere within himself, he had reconciled himself with a for reals goodbye. After he passed, he visited Susan, came through loud and clear, seemed to speak directly to her. She texted Kathy and she said, "When I put my sadness aside, Danny says he is free, he is not struggling or suffering, and do not be sad for me. He says he is present with us until we are doing okay." Beautiful message. Before we offer a final blessing for Dan, I wanted to call out how much his sister and Ray took on to see him through his last 6 years. As their mother was dying, Louise turned to Kathy and said, "Promise me you'll take care of your brother." And although she had no idea what that would mean, that is exactly what Kathy did. Truth is, being the oldest, she'd always been tasked with kind of looking out after him, not always having an idyllic relationship with Dan. Kathy found a way to say it politely, not always having an idyllic relationship with Dan. Kathy found a way to reconcile with him, truly love and appreciate him, and offer him a place to live. As she said, "I was ultimately glad I had that time with him, despite all the challenges." She texted him every day, fed him, and looked after him as no one else could. She was a remarkable caretaker, respectful of his privacy, but at the same time, there with him every step of the way. She and Ray were remarkable friends to him, and I know that there is a big thank you coming in from both Louise and from Dan himself. And maybe they would want us to just to add a little applause to say thank you. Although we wish he could have been with us longer, we recognize that on October 25th, Dan left behind a body that could no longer serve him, and in so doing, left us such a rich life for us to draw upon. Surely as we're gathered here today, I know Dan knows our intentions to honor him, bless him on his way. And so I'll address him with our thanks and our blessing. Dan, accept our gratefulness for the beautiful, loving life fueled by your love of music, your love of animals, your love of the great outdoors, and that you so magnificently express. May you be enveloped with our love and our gratitude, and be given safe passage in the days ahead. May you be anointed with light, that you may radiate out into light, be embraced by a welcoming love from those who await you, especially Louise. May you be at ease. May you be free from suffering. May you be healed, we know you are. May you know joy and lightness of being. May you dwell in comfort and compassion. May you be a source of comfort and compassion for all whom you meet. Go in peace. Blessings. We offer your spirit this traditional Irish blessing. May the blessings of light be upon you, light without, light within, and in all your comings and goings. May you ever have a kindly greeting from them who meet on the road. Blessings on you. Well, blessings on you each. I bring my heartfelt condolences, recognizing that Dan with such a welcoming and loving presence that he will be profoundly missed. I'm going to blow these candles out, not to extinguish them, but to metaphorically offer that you take the light that represents Dan, take that into your heart, carry that into your days ahead. Let his light shine through you as you learn to play the guitar, Bill, or as you go out on your hunts, or as you tune into the magic of music. Blessings on you. Well, I truly believe that more than living to a creed or a profession of faith, that the universe smiles on those who most delight in the gift of life that they've been given and who choose to make a difference to others. And even though Dan didn't get the best stack of cards with his congenital disease at the beginning, he managed to love life, give it his all, and to live it with delight. He epitomized delight, lived such a generous, giving life filled with music. Well, this concludes our ceremony, and I do have, and I don't have a lot, but I went ahead and made a refrigerator magnet that says "Remembering Dan," and it has the Tom Petty quote on it. Music is probably the only real magic I've encountered in my life. There's not some trick involved with it. It's pure, it's real, moves, it heals, communicates, and does all these incredible things. And then there's a guitar with I hate to say it, Texas flag with Texas blues. So I offer it first to the family, and then anyone else that has a refrigerator, I offer it for you. So thank you, and let me invite up Tyler to give us our final instructions. And thank you. It's been a privilege to be with you and a privilege to get to know Dan. Thank you.
This will draw to a close our services for Dan today. I'd like to thank you all very much for being here, and I wish you a nice evening.
Thank you.